Ladies and gentlemen, if someone keeps showing up, not just when it's easy, not just when it's fun, but when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unglamorous, that's not an accident, that's intention. Forget grand gestures for a moment. The real question is, who's consistent when no one's watching? Because anyone can say they care, but only the real ones prove it, over time, through action, without applause. And if you're not watching closely, you just might miss the person who's been choosing you all along. When someone pulls away and becomes quiet, the natural instinct is to panic, to assume something is wrong, or worse, that they've lost interest. But silence doesn't always mean detachment. In some cases, it's a reflection of depth, not distance. People often retreat when they are sorting out emotions, trying to make sense of something they feel but haven't yet found the words for. It's not a shutdown, it's a pause, a space where they can reflect without external pressure. In these moments, it's easy to project fear onto the silence, to fill in the blanks with worry. But not every pause is a rejection. Sometimes it's simply a moment of emotional alignment, a way to show up better when they do return. That space they take can actually be a sign of care, not carelessness. It's in the quiet that someone sometimes decides just how much they value what they have. They take stock of their own feelings, their uncertainties, and their intentions. They're not ghosting, they're thinking, they're processing without an audience. Not because they don't want to share, but because they want to be sure. Sure of what they feel, sure of what they want, sure of how they'll show it. Jumping in with half-formed words wouldn't serve either side, so they choose patience. Reflection, a deliberate pause before the next move. This kind of stillness is actually a form of respect. It means you're being taken seriously. Not everything deserves an instant reaction. Not every feeling is meant to be spoken before it's fully understood. There's value in waiting until things are clear, until the emotions line up with the words. Some people don't blurt out every thought because they understand the weight of their words. When someone steps back to process, it's not to avoid confrontation, it's to avoid confusion. They want to come to you with clarity, not chaos. They want to offer something real, not something reactive. In a world of instant replies and endless digital contact, we've forgotten the power of the pause. We confuse availability with connection. We think constant communication equals affection. But true depth doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it listens before it speaks, and sometimes it waits. This is where trust becomes essential. Trust that the space isn't abandonment. Trust that silence isn't a void. Trust that something meaningful could be forming in that quiet. Growth doesn't always happen in conversation. Sometimes it happens in solitude. We're conditioned to chase reassurance, to seek constant feedback that we're valued. But real assurance often comes through action, not explanation. It's found in what follows the silence. What happens after the processing? Does the person come back stronger, more centered, more intentional? That return tells you everything. Because it's not about how quickly someone responds, it's about how truthfully they do. Rushing leads to empty words. Waiting creates space for honesty. It's not indifference, it's integrity. And that's worth more than instant gratification. In the meantime, the most empowering thing you can do is hold your own space. Let the silence be without trying to fill it. Don't over-explain, over-apologize, or overextend just to fix a temporary disconnect. Your energy doesn't have to chase anyone. You are not responsible for another person's timing. What you are responsible for is how you respond, with calm, with clarity, and with confidence. That space is not just theirs, it's yours too. Use it. Reflect on your own needs. Be curious, not anxious. Be grounded, not grasping. Many confuse distance with disinterest, but the two aren't the same. Distance can be a protective step, a moment of internal rebalancing. Someone may be dealing with personal battles you can't see. They may be reevaluating life paths, past relationships, or future goals. It's not always about you. In fact, sometimes the silence has nothing to do with you at all. The healthiest relationships allow for individuality, for emotional breathing room. You don't need to take every pause personally. Some of the most powerful connections are the ones that can hold space without panic. When someone is taking time, it's an opportunity for you as well, to notice your own reactions, to check your impulse to fix things immediately, to understand what presence means when words are few. How do you treat yourself in those moments of uncertainty? Do you spiral or stay centered? Do you cling or remain composed? Your reaction tells you more about your emotional maturity than their silence ever will. This is where self-trust is built. In the space between question and answer, between contact and comeback, between tension and resolution. It's easy to love when things are flowing, when communication is constant and clear, but emotional strength is tested when things get quiet, when the rhythm changes, when someone steps back, not out. Can you stay still without spinning stories? Can you believe in the bond without needing constant proof? The truth is, the strongest connections are not defined by how loud the words are, but by how safe the silence feels. There's a certain trust that says, I'm here even when I'm quiet. That kind of trust doesn't shout, it simply stays. Eventually, if the connection is real and meaningful, the silence will break. And when it does, it'll be with more clarity, more depth, more direction. It won't be a rushed apology or a shallow promise. It will be the return of someone who chose to come back whole, not halfway. And you'll know, it wasn't avoidance, it was intention. The time they took wasn't distance, it was devotion in disguise. Sometimes, the strongest message is sent in the quietest moment. And the loudest kind of love isn't shouted, it's shown. When the silence ends with presence. Not all interest comes dressed in obvious words or grand declarations. Sometimes it slips in quietly, almost unnoticed, through the details that many overlook. You might not hear constant affirmations, but you'll feel the presence in small, meaningful ways. It's in the way someone remembers the name of your friend or the story you told 3 weeks ago. It's in the subtle way they bring up something you love or suggest a plan that feels familiar, because they've been paying attention. Real interest doesn't always make noise. It often shows up as quiet consistency. You'll notice it in the gentle reminders, the effort to understand, the unspoken acknowledgement of what matters to you. These gestures are deliberate, they are signals, and they speak volumes, even when words are few. Interest doesn't always look like daily texts or big confessions. Sometimes, it's a pattern of presence, the way someone shows up again and again, just enough to stay connected. They're not flooding your inbox, but they're not fading away either. They check in at just the right moments. They comment on something that proves they're following your life, even from a distance. They might ask about something small you thought they'd forget, or support a project you didn't even know they noticed. These moments aren't random. They are thoughtful acts of connection, rooted in care. And they often come when you least expect them, but most need them. While flashy words can be tempting, it's the subtle behaviors that truly reveal how someone feels. It takes more effort to notice and act on the small things than to throw around compliments. It's easy to say, I'm thinking of you, but harder to actually remember the details that prove it. People who are emotionally invested don't just listen, they retain. They store pieces of what matters to you and later reflect them back in the form of action. Maybe they suggest watching that obscure movie you once mentioned. Maybe they order your favorite snack without asking. Maybe they bring up your dream in conversation as if it's already part of their vision too. These aren't coincidences. They're clues. The beauty of these subtle signals is that they're never performative. They're not done for show. No one sees them but you. And sometimes, not even you at first. They don't ask for recognition. They don't come with a spotlight. But they build trust, slowly, steadily. They reveal the truth in someone's focus, the places where their mind wanders when you're not around. If you look closely, you'll start to see a pattern, a gentle persistence, a quiet presence in the background of your life. Always watching, listening, caring, not to impress, but to connect. These are the seeds of something real. The most telling actions are often the ones done without obligation. No one asked them to check on your interview. No one told them to ask about your family. They weren't prompted. They simply did it because they wanted to, because they care. And that's the kind of interest that doesn't have to be announced. It's shown in timing, attention, and intuition. They reach out just when you've had a long day. They remember that you were nervous about something. They support your ambition, not with big speeches, but with quiet reinforcement. The way they show up tells you everything if you're willing to notice. Sometimes this form of care gets overlooked because it's not dramatic. It doesn't sweep you off your feet with grand gestures or declarations, but it grounds you. It creates a calm certainty. It offers stability, not performance. And while it may take longer to recognize, once you do, it's unmistakable because it feels safe, reliable. You don't have to second guess it. You don't have to chase it. It's there, steady and intentional, even when no one's watching. That's how you know it's real. Not by how loud it is, but by how consistent it becomes. It's important to pay attention not just to what people say, but how they behave when there's no reward. Do they still show up when there's nothing in it for them? Are they still kind, still attentive, even when you're not giving them your full attention in return? This is where genuine interest separates itself from temporary curiosity. The ones who stay engaged without validation, who don't keep score, those are the ones whose interest is sincere. You won't need to decode mixed signals or chase for answers. Their care will be clear because it's rooted in something honest and steady. This subtlety is easy to miss when you're waiting for something louder. You might wonder if you're imagining things, but the truth is, it's the people who respect your rhythm, who don't push or pressure, that often care the most. They move at a pace that respects both your comfort and theirs. They show interest not by demanding your time, but by offering their presence. They meet you where you are, not where they want you to be. And that creates a foundation of mutual respect, one that doesn't need constant affirmation, but thrives on quiet understanding. In this space, you start to realize that true connection isn't about urgency, it's about intention. It's about the way someone invests time in learning your world. They don't try to rush in or rewrite your story, they just want to be a part of it, one page at a time. You'll feel it in how they make plans that align with your interests, how they shift their own routine to include you without asking you to change yours. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to integrate. And that kind of integration can only come from genuine care. Over time, these seemingly small actions build into something much greater. A quiet momentum begins to grow. You start to realize that you're being thought of, not just in the big moments, but in the ordinary ones. Your happiness becomes part of someone else's mental checklist. Your stories live in their memory. Your success feels like something they cheer for, even in silence. This is what consistent, quiet care looks like. It doesn't beg for attention, it earns your trust. Slowly, surely, and without ever needing to shout. True intent reveals itself not in what someone says once, but in what they continue to do over time. A single act of affection can be beautiful, but consistency is what builds trust. When someone keeps showing up, despite the inconvenience, the distractions, and the chaos of life, it says more than any romantic gesture ever could. Being there when it's easy doesn't require much, but being there when it's hard, that's a different kind of message. That's when interest transforms into effort. That's when feelings deepen into commitment. No one needs to prove anything with words when their actions already tell the story. You learn more about what someone values by what they return to again and again. A lot of people know how to start strong, The first few days or weeks are full of excitement, attention, and energy. But what happens after that initial spark fades? That's where consistency becomes the deciding factor. It's not about a perfect beginning, it's about whether the interest remains after novelty wears off. Does the connection evolve or vanish when the thrill is gone? It's easy to get swept up in early chemistry. The harder part is recognizing who stays interested when real life kicks in, when schedules get hectic, when moods shift, when things aren't convenient. It's in those stretches of ordinary life that real care is revealed. Patterns matter more than promises. Anyone can say they're committed. Anyone can say they care. But only those who consistently make space for you in their lives, no matter the season, are showing you the truth. The repetition of small actions is more honest than a single, well-rehearsed line. Look at the rhythm, not the highlight. He's saying that the time of who checks in without being prompted, who remembers the things that matter to you, who includes you in their daily thought process without being asked. These are not accidental moments. These are intentional habits. They don't happen overnight, but they reveal what's genuine. The kind of interest that lasts doesn't need a spotlight. It quietly becomes part of a person's everyday life. You're not a distraction. They're integrating you into their routine. You don't have to ask for attention. It's offered freely because the connection feels natural to them. They're not showing up only when they want something. They're not withdrawing the moment things get uncomfortable. Instead, they're present, they're responsive, and their presence isn't sporadic, it's dependable. You don't have to question whether they'll vanish. You know, because they've shown you through time that you're a priority, not an option. This kind of steady presence creates emotional safety. It allows both people to relax into the connection without anxiety or second guessing. You don't feel like you're walking on eggshells, wondering if today will be different. You're not stuck analyzing every word or wondering if the attention will suddenly stop. You start to feel confident in the rhythm, trusting that it's not just a passing phase. It doesn't mean things are perfect all the time, but there's an unspoken reassurance in the consistency. Even when there are disagreements or misunderstandings, the effort to reconnect is always there. There's a quiet power in someone who keeps showing up. They might not always have the perfect words or grand gestures, but they keep choosing you again and again. They respond, they remember, they support. And even when things are hard or inconvenient, they find a way to stay close, not because they have to, but because they want to. That want is where genuine care lives. It's not forced, it's not conditional, it's just there, reliable and real. And that's the kind of effort that builds the foundation for something meaningful. Reliability is often undervalued in a world that chases excitement, but those who are consistent are the ones who can be trusted. They won't leave you hanging. They won't ghost you when life gets messy. They're not just present when they're in the mood. They're emotionally invested, and that shows through the way they manage their time, their words, and their energy. They respect your space, but never drift too far. They don't overwhelm, but they never disappear. That delicate balance is a form of emotional intelligence, one that creates connection without pressure. Time exposes everything. If someone's interest is shallow, it fades quickly. It can't sustain itself without the thrill. But when someone's care is real, it adapts, it matures, it holds steady through both high and low points. You don't have to question whether they're still interested. They show you every day in the way they remain engaged, not just when it's convenient, not just when they're in the mood, but because they've decided that your presence matters to them. That's not about excitement. That's about intention, and it speaks louder than any declaration ever could. Sustainable connection isn't built in one moment. It's built in hundreds of tiny ones. It's the good morning text that keeps coming, even months later. It's the check-ins when you're sick. It's the remembering of small details from conversations long past. It's the ability to stay emotionally present, even when physically apart. These moments accumulate. They form a mosaic of trust, of effort, of lasting care. Each small choice adds another layer of stability. And eventually you realize, this isn't fleeting. This isn't temporary. This is someone building something with you, one consistent act at a time. There's a quiet confidence that grows in the presence of someone who is consistent. You stop needing constant reassurance because the pattern speaks for itself. You start to relax into the connection, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. The highs aren't inflated and the lows don't break you, because you built something steady together. Over time, the need for big gestures fades, replaced by the comfort of daily effort. And in that space, trust flourishes. Not because someone told you they care, but because they've shown you every step of the way.